Yeah.
Nice. That was awesome.
That's the thing is, as things evolve, we got to progress a little bit. And I was like, we don't really for our stuff on Facebook and YouTube. We don't really have we have our little intro, but then it goes right to us, and there's nothing like, like a segue into it. And then I was just starting to think about like what sounds really good from the podcast perspective that we can leave in as like an intro song, and then it like cuts out and then comes back, right? And
Yeah.
so, but
either way, for video, that was badass.
yeah, we got to do what we got to do. So
yeah, we haven't been on for a little while. So what's up, everybody? Excuse me. Welcome to another episode of Those Two Dads, talking all things dadpreneur. We've actually been doing a lot of reflecting recently, so I think that's what we're going to get into today. So I'm Kyle, this is Josh, and our topic today is what? Reflection?
Or
clarity?
Why is clarity important?
I think we've had some major epiphanies, I think, for the both of us recently.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. So just real quick, housekeeping stuff. If you're on live, give us a hashtag live on Facebook or over on YouTube. If you haven't liked our YouTube page, go over to YouTube, click like, subscribe, all that good stuff. You guys know the drill on that. And then also you can always find us on any of the major podcast networks. So I think that wraps it up, dude. Let's get going.
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually we got Scott in the house already with us.
What's up, Scotty? Scott? What up, dude?
So yeah, it's been an interesting month, hasn't it? Or a couple months, really. But
to say the least.
Yeah. But I think the thing that's why this episode is going to be so powerful, not just, for us, but for anybody listening and watching, is we've definitely done a lot of that reflection, like you talked about, and we're talking about why is clarity important. And I think the big thing that people think about when they think about clarity is they just think, oh, well, just have a clear vision of your future and you're good. It's like, no, not really. I mean, there's more to it.
Both of us can attest to that. Like, there's a clear vision of the future, but like when you're not moving forward,
I need some sleep.
At the pace that you need. What's up, buddy?
Yep, we got a little one right here. He's getting in.
Hey, dad life.
Yep, that's the dad life. That's what this podcast is all about, is getting interrupted. Go on, bud.
So when you're not moving in the direction that you need to pivot, and you need to understand what are the actions that you're taking that are keeping you held back, what's busy work, what is too much on your plate, all those types of things. Does he just want to join in?
you want to just
He's our guest speaker today.
You want to sit with us? No? Okay. Yeah. This has definitely been a thing lately.
I was expecting that from my kids today. They were sleeping when I normally come up here to kind of prep, and we jump on a little bit early to talk before we go live on these things.
Right.
And my kids woke up at about 8:55. They're like, I need this, I need that. And Heather wasn't here. She had ran off to go get some coffee and some breakfast for everybody.
Oh, that's nice.
They're still sleeping, right? And so anyway, of course they woke up right then. And then I was having computer problems, and now it's 9:38 and we're just getting started.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like I said when we were waiting, it's like, number one, it's our show. So if we don't start right at 9 a.m. like we normally do, there's no problem but ours, and we don't care. I mean, like we do. We like having consistency and things like that. But when it really comes down to it, it's like, it's our show. So if
the majority of people watch it on the replay anyway.
Right. I mean, most people are going to watch the replay, but no, I mean, and you're right too. Like when you think about just the way that things are, and like the the feedback we get from a lot of people that we talk to when they say like, you know, how are you guys managing being able to be dads and being able to be husbands and, you know, actually, you know, trying to build a business and all those kinds of things. And it just comes down to clarity. You get clear on what it is that's important to you, what you want to do with your time, how you want to manage that time, and all of that stuff. If you're not clear in those things and you don't have that direction and that intentional nature of like, I'm just going to do these things this specific way because this is what works, and you just fly off the handle and just do whatever, and, you know, no plan, no schedule, nothing's going to get done. And that's something that we learned big time in the last, you know, and we're always
also was
learning.
taking on too many projects,
Right?
That left our original project down to a couple hours a week as opposed to a couple hours 6-7 days a week.
Right. And that's something that's what happens is when people aren't clear with their path and they're not clear with their goals and their dreams. You know, that's what happens. On one note here, 1 second, I'm on call this weekend, by the way, for my day job, so I'm getting called right now.
oh yes, do it to it. Yeah, so I guess that's part of it, right, guys? So when you're trying to build something new, trying to build a business, and you obviously can't leave your day job right away. I mean, whoever's telling people to do that needs to go kick rocks. You got to support your family. You know, it's about balance. And so just another kind of wrench that gets thrown in there. I think both of our day jobs recently have been a little extra as far as pressure and tasks and all those good things. So I know both him and I we regularly cite 9 to 5, but it's definitely not 9 to 5 for either of us. In fact, most Sunday nights I spend about 4 hours or so putting together a presentation for Monday mornings. You know, that's 4 hours of my weekend, but that just fuels the fire to want to build something better for, you know, our lives, my family's lives. You know, Josh wants to do the same thing. You know, you want to take back control, and ultimately, it's control of your time, right? It's getting back control of the time so that you can do the things that you want to do when you want to do them. You know, and that's not to skirt responsibility by any means, but you want to be able to have your own schedule and not build somebody else's dream. So that's kind of that point there. So as we're waiting for Josh to jump back on, going solo here. So we wanted to kind of talk about clarity, and we were discussing clarity about 4 weeks ago. And I think it ultimately kind of jumped off for both of us that as we wanted to talk about clarity, we were feeling a little less and less clear in our own business, in our own life. And it's part of the reason we didn't jump on our last episode. So it's been 4 weeks since we've been on. So our cadence is usually every other two, but we're just kind of getting refocused on where we want to go with our time, with our tasks. We're biting off a little bit more than we could chew with some of the projects that we wanted to do, and you know, this is where it always starts, right? You have these great intentions on wanting to do something fantastic, or maybe, you know, you think, okay, you know, that's only going to be like an hour here or there, and it turns into, you know, 5 or 6 or whatever. And again, it's great intentions, and then ultimately, like, you wake up one day and you're like, man, I don't have time for anything. And Josh has a specific story that he's going to jump into here in a little bit, but about just kind of the epiphany of where his focus was. And I think we both had it, but his story is a lot better than mine. So I'll let him tell that. But you wake up one day and you just realize that you're not focused on anything. Like you're in scramble mode, and you're not putting enough time into anything to get any momentum back. And at that point, you know, you got to start cutting things back. Cut what you can and focus back on your core until you're at the level of the result that you want. And so I know for him and I both, like, we're certainly not to the level that we want to be by any stretch of the imagination. You know, this is this podcast, and, you know, us, our Facebooks and everything else it's a journey of, you know, start to from the beginning, and getting launched is more of like an origin story, really, on on where we want to go. Our guy Josh here is helping out a client. Yeah. So just with oh, you gonna jump back on?
All right. So that's
Man.
fun. So here's the joy of, having a job that can potentially be situations where we're on call. And so the job that I do during the day is software support, and I'm a US engineer, and we rotate on call shifts and times and whatever. And if we get like a US government case that comes in, our overseas people can't take it legally. So that was a call basically saying, hey, we've got a US government case that needs to be worked on. And, are you on call? And I'm like, yep, I'm on call this weekend. So we'll be able to finish up here, and then I'll be able to call them back because I have to call them back within an hour. So, but yeah, so
Why everything the government takes so long?
Yeah, it's to support people's problems.
Yeah. You didn't get to hear anything that I was talking about, but I'm just talking about clarity, and obviously, like, you having to jump off on stuff like that is, one of the whys behind, wanting to build a business in the first place, to get back our time. So,
Absolutely.
have to be on call like that. But ultimately, I wanted you to jump in and tell your story about kind of the epiphanous clarity that you had a couple of weekends ago with your mentor. You were talking about, you start out and you're building a business, you make relationships, and then you want to take on another project. And usually it always starts out with the best of intentions, right? And then next thing you know, you're 6 projects deep and you got no time or clarity on any of it.
Mm-hmm.
And your story was pretty clear.
Yeah, and I'll go through that. I'll go through that quick here.
Yep.
But yeah, it was interesting because, so me being the person that I am, I'm always wanting to help people. I always want to do more, have a bigger impact and just be able to change people's lives on a grander scale, because there's plenty of people out there that may think they have it all together, but then when they get somebody that, talks about a certain subject or whatever the case may be, maybe that sparks them to go, oh, hey, I can improve in that area, or I can do better in this other area. And so that's always been my goal, is to inspire people to be just better versions of themselves. The downside to that is that sometimes turns into me wanting to just put more things on my plate, and, or maybe not wanting to, but just doing it, right, without thinking about the consequences or thinking about the other side of things. And what I had started doing is these ideas would come up between, myself and Kyle, or myself and other people, or whatever the case may be. And it was a situation where a new project was put on my plate, and it was a group that we were going to run. And, it was me, Kyle, and another friend of ours that we were all kind of getting together to put this group together. And I said, that sounds like a really good idea. We can impact this area. It kind of went along the theme of our podcast too, where it's helping dads and, kind of giving a dad perspective on things. And it went great right away, and it seemed like things were going fine. But then there was just all these other little things that kept kind of piling on, and things that had to be done, and times throughout the week that we were meeting to talk about things about the group. And it wasn't that those things are bad, because that's good to do when you're partnering with people to keep everybody on the same page. But it just started to take more time away from other things I was working on.
Yeah, none of it's bad in the sense like, oh,
no.
My God, I can't believe that happened. It's simply too much on the plate.
Right. And so
more so for you than anybody else. You were diving in on some of the technical stuff, and
right,
and you were doing some copy and stuff like that. So
right. And so I started noticing that I was kind of lacking. I was starting to have problems where I wasn't getting as much done. I didn't have that disconnect, we had talked a while back in another episode about, disconnecting from the business life to be able to spend time with family, or disconnecting sometimes the family issues to be able to focus on business. And, we've brought that up a couple other times in terms of, really just
Practice what you preach, damn it.
What was that?
I said, practice what you preach, damn it.
Right, exactly. And so essentially the issue that happened is I started having sleeping problems. I wasn't sleeping well. I was staying up real late, later than I normally would. And just all these kind of signs that it wasn't me that picked up on it. It was actually my wife. And she said, "Hey, are you okay? Like, is everything good?" And my normal response is always, "Yeah, I'm good. Like, whatever. I don't feel anything, I'm a man. I don't have feelings, But right. I mean, that's kind of how I was putting it off, right? Like I was like, I'm good. I don't feel anything wrong. But in reality, I was walking around like this all the time. I was scrunched up and I was tense and I was, things were weighing on me. And I didn't realize it. And I was having a conversation with my mentor. So, Katie and I, we run, a network marketing business outside of the online marketing stuff. And so we go to meetings with that and we travel and do all those things. And so I was in person with my mentor in one of our meetings, and he was like, "Hey, everything all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." And he was like, "Okay, because you seem kind of off." And I was like, "Really? I seem off?" And he's like, "Well, you seem off enough that people have come up to me and asked me if you're all right." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's understandable." And we had basically we were sitting there chatting a little bit, and he's like, "Well, tell me what you're going through." And I said, "Really? I'm just working on these things." And so he said, "Okay, let's list out everything you're working on." Because I'm sure he picked up on it before I did, right? Like he picked up on the fact that I was not necessarily, myself, and I was probably putting too much stress on my, my mind and things like that. And so basically what happened is he said, "Okay, let's list out everything." And he's like, "All right, this is a lot of things." I think I listed out like 8 or 10
things. Was it?
What was it?
How many things was it?
It was like 10 things on the list. 10 things. And so he goes, that's a lot to work on. And I said, "Okay, yeah, I get it." But, and I was trying to justify it by going, "Well, this works with this and this works together over here. And this is only once a week. And this is only once every 2 weeks." And he goes, "Yeah, but that's everything that you're thinking about every day. And you're kind of cluttering your mind." And I was like, "Oh man."
You told me too, like there's a really powerful thing that he asked you, because how much time are you able to actually spend on this in a week?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was,
that's like for each one, like
each one. Right. And that was what's interesting is
really made you think about it.
He did.
Which, good mentor does. Like, let's think deeply about this stuff.
Right. And so that was the deciding factor. He said, "How much time can you spend on each one of these things independently?" And I said, "Well, really, I mean, every day I can't, so I have to split it up." And he said, "So how are you splitting it up?" And I realized I was splitting it up. Basically, I was working on one thing each day, but the problem is that each day was not equal. So there's some days I only had an hour or two to work on stuff, and there's other days I had 4 or 5 hours. So splitting it all up, I was maybe only spending 1 or 2 hours a week on each thing, and instead of 1 or 2 hours a day. And so his thing said, he's like, "Do you think that you're going to be able to progress the way that you want, which with each of these things, the way that things are right now?" And I said, "No." I said, and that was the thing. I knew, like, once I wrote it out, I knew. I was like looking at these 10 things on this list, and he said, "All right, let's get you to get to the next level, and let's take some time and let's figure out what's 3 things that you can get rid of right now to relieve some of the pressure." And it was hard because I didn't want to get rid of anything because everything had its place. But then,
you think it does, because I've been going through that too. Like it's weird. Like you and I are like on the same wavelength with stuff sometimes. But I was having the same thought, and especially when you can tell yourself, "Well, this goes with this thing, this leads into that thing, it's supposed to feed into this, and blah blah blah," and you have it justified in your head. You're like, in reality, like if everything was firing on all cylinders, like we were, some sort of like epic marketers that have been doing this for 30 years, sure, it makes sense. But in our journey, I was telling everybody this before, like when you're on the phone, like our journey is about the beginning, and and progressing steadily from that. Like, we're not obviously, like the Frank Kerns or the Russell Brunsons or whomever, right? We are some guys who've studied those guys and have been inspired to start our journey within the last like 12, 18 months, and we're what this is about too is going through those growing pains. Like, I can't tell you the amount of times I've read somebody be like, look, you need to pick one thing and you need to focus on that one area. And a lot of times they're specifically like, if you want to do paid ads, focus on paid ads in that, in that channel. If you want to do organic social media marketing, you need to pick one channel and focus on that. Like, get good at it, and then you can start adding in other things.
Yep.
But the point of get good at it, like the clarity there, is start making consistent money with it. Then you can move on to something else. And I don't know how many times I've read something like that. And to like wrap up my point, I also was piling on these other things that was like, okay, this goes into this, email marketing does that, this a YouTube channel that I'd like to start is going to do this, but thinking about starting TikTok because it's really great organic traffic right now. Like, that's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff, and it adds up, and it turns into, well, instead of working on like actual income producing activities, which is talking to people basically one-on-one.
Yep.
Every day of the week, it turned into, well, I need to write my email copy here. I need my Facebook copy here. If I'm thinking about these other things, I have all this brain power going here, doing a group, doing the other group. And like, it becomes such a distraction, but you've convinced yourself that it all has a means to an end, but really it's just busy work.
Yep.
It became busy work.
And that's really what happened too, is, it became just going through the motions and doing the busy work. I was writing my emails and doing all these things. And it was difficult because I wanted these things to all work together. And here's the thing, right? They weren't all different projects, right? They weren't all different products or anything like that. Some of them were just different tasks. Like, Kyle said, getting into TikTok. I started getting into TikTok because I'm not doing anything else other than Facebook. And, I do put my videos on YouTube, but I'm not actually like promoting my YouTube.
Oh, it's like a file saver right now.
Exactly. It's like a repository, it's just kind of there.
Which eventually when you're ready, like that can make sense. It's just now it's there. And when you're ready to like put.
Right. And so
that's literally no time at all to do that.
Right. And so
we are just an additional task, but
yeah. And so that was the thing that we immediately took out 3 things. And then he says, okay, now you're down to 7. Now what's 2 things that you probably could get rid of, but don't really take that much time, so you don't have to worry about it. And I picked out those 2 things. And then he said, okay, now out of these 5 things, what are the 3 most important things you need to work on? And I picked out those 3 things. And then he said, okay, now out of those remaining 3 things, what is the number 1 thing that you're going to focus on? And I picked that out. And he said, okay, pick the number 2 thing. And I picked that out. And he goes, okay, so there's your top 3 right there, your top 3 priorities. And what was interesting is that the clarity that gave me was, it gave me a priority list of 3 things that are most important to me in my business. And then 2 things that are kind of important, but, take it or leave it, whatever. Like, they're there. They're more important than the second half of the list, but they're not more important than the first 3. And then 2 pieces that were like, I could probably get rid of these if I needed to, but they don't really take up that much time, so I'm not too worried about it. And then 3 things that just had to go. And I've never broken a list of priorities down like that before. I've made priorities and then reordered around and made them, be in a top, number of.
Have somebody be accountable to getting rid of some.
Right. And so that was the thing that he did, was he really made me look at it, and he held me accountable. He was like, are you going to get rid of those or not? And I said, yep. So.
Makes you tired just thinking about it.
Oh yeah. Well, and I haven't had any coffee or anything this morning yet. So
I'm drinking my caffeine right
now. Mine's brewing. But it just came down to that conversation was really helpful for clarity. And this is
It also reinforces the fact that you can say no.
right.
You can say no when and even if it's a great idea, like, so, you could be somebody could approach you with like the best idea in the world, but if it's not aligning with your own goals and your own time, it's hard to say no. Sometimes you are going to miss out on something great, but you're focused on your task, and a lot of times it's really not going to be that great to begin with.
Right. Well, and here's the thing too is don't let all the gurus out there sit there and tell you that, oh, don't ever pass up any opportunity because you never know which one's going to be the next, $1 million opportunity. And it's like, yeah, but if you're like us,
Focus on everything, focus on nothing.
right. I mean, the thing that I always like to live by, and I failed at this myself because, and I'll say failed because we learn when we fail. I didn't fail and quit, but we learn when we fail. And I failed at following my own advice and the things that my mentor teaches. But one of the main things he teaches us is, the person who tries to master many things actually becomes a master of none. And that's something where, a lot of us can really latch down to that and say, here's the deal. I want to focus on being a master at one thing. And then from that one thing, I can branch on to other things. And initially, in the beginning of my online marketing career, I wanted to master Facebook marketing. And what I realized is that mastering Facebook marketing is a beast in itself, because you can master it and then Facebook changes the game. Facebook turns around and says, all right, we're going to change our algorithm, or we're going to bring out new features and you have to learn how to integrate these new features to be able to get more reach, or you need to run ads in order to reach the people because we're not sending your content to these people. I mean, there's specific things that Facebook does to change the game. The same goes for anything out there. So if you're going to master something, you have to master it to a point where when the changes come, it's an easy switch. That you just go, all right, I just got to change these couple things, because you don't have to go relearn the whole platform. But the problem with for me is I said, do I want to master that, or do I want to master something that very few people are actually mastering? And so that's where I made the decision. I said, you know what, I can still market on Facebook. I can still do that, but I don't need to use Facebook as my main path for getting traffic or things like that. I can use it as a way to expand my brand and reach a specific demographic of people the way that I initially designed it to do, and then make email marketing my number one thing. And then that way I can take that skill set to people, for example, like Kyle. I can go to Kyle and say, hey, here's another tip for email marketing. Here's another thing you can do. Here's another way you can clean your list. I can do all those things, and Kyle can sit back and go, sweet. I don't have to master that thing because Josh has got that. And I'm going to go, Kyle can make a decision and go, all right, I'm going to go over and go back to organic Facebook, what he knows, what he can do. And he can focus on something else because he knows that he's connected with somebody that he can call on and go, hey, I got a question on email marketing. And I'm going to go, all right, let's go through it. And I can go to Kyle and go, hey, I got a question on organic marketing. And he'll be like, all right, let's go through it. And that's something that I had that clarity because of a conversation with a mentor. So key number one, have somebody you can have a conversation with, because you are your own biased mind. You're going to tell yourself that 10 things on your plate is not that bad. You need someone to tell you, no, that's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then
you always need to have somebody that can help you achieve your goals.
Yes. And after you get that,
nobody's doing this alone.
Right. You want to make sure that you actually take their advice and you actually listen to the feedback and take it to heart. Because I had two choices. I could have said, yep, that all sounds great, and then get home and go, yeah, whatever, I'm going to do my thing. Or I can do what I did, and I got home and I said, all right, I need to have a conversation. And I got a hold of Kyle and our other buddy John, and we sat down. I was like, hey, this is what I've got going on. This is what's happening, and these are the things I got to cut out right now. And they both, here's the thing, they both were like, yep, that makes perfect sense. Because I came with actual clarity of exactly what was happening, why I was in the state I was, how I got to that point, how I realized it was a problem, and how I figured out how to fix it. I didn't come through and be like, well, I'm overwhelmed, so I'm just going to cut out these things. It was an actual well thought out process of having a conversation with a mentor, making the decision, and then actually following through with that decision. And that's how, that's the thing, is clarity is a decision. It's an intentional action to really focus on the things that are important to you. And without that, nobody can be successful.
No. And truth be told, excuse me, when you have razor sharp clarity in the actions that you need to be taking, in the direction that you need to be going, it raises your belief level, right? Your certainty level in yourself, your certainty level in the projects that you're working on, your certainty level, and all that transfers into the actions that you're taking, the customers that you're talking to, potential customers that you're talking to. And like that's where momentum really comes into check. When your belief can rise because you're finally clear in the direction that you want to go, that's when things start to take off.
Yep.
That's for sure. And honestly, for me, like my belief was plummeting in myself and what I wanted to be focusing on, and so did the action that I was taking. Like everything was just coming down. So like it had the reverse effect when belief goes down. So and it's because I wasn't clear anymore. I was losing belief, and I needed to reverse that tide. And then being able to just have those conversations with you kind of in step and in stride at the same time, it was super helpful for me to regain clarity.
Mm-hmm. And
sometimes like I just needed somebody to just be like, yeah, man, that's where you need to go.
Yeah. Well, and that's what it takes sometimes, right? Is just, even just having a partner in crime, somebody that you're doing something with, or somebody that you're connected to, that you can have those good conversations. I mean, shoot, what was it? That following Tuesday, we were up till 1 a.m, just going over everything and, talking it out and, talking about little things that we're doing and how it's working out and little tips and tricks and stuff like that. But we also had real deep conversation about just the way things are going. And that's really where, if you don't have a mentor and you don't have somebody like that, find somebody. I mean, shoot, reach out to one of us. Like, either Kyle or myself are always going to, if somebody's like, hey, I need to talk about something, we're not going to shy away from that. We're not going to tell you, hey, I'm not your mentor, get away. It's like, we're going to chat with you and we're going to help you out, because we've been in those situations. Both of us have been in many situations that even most people on here don't even know about, that can help people in just life in general. And it's just you gotta be able to be willing to receive the feedback that you're going to get, because if you ask somebody for help, be prepared to be open to what they have to say. Don't be closed off. And that goes with anything, right? Not just a random person, but even a mentor. Like the student decides that, the student determines the teacher, right? Like if you go in with a closed mind, the teacher's going to be closed off to you. But if you go in with an open mind, whoever's talking with you, they're going to feel more relaxed. So they're going to feel more open to give you the straight and narrow, the exact information that you're looking for. And it may not be what you want to hear, but if you're open to it,
you should be open to. Like if you're asking for somebody's guidance, you need to be open to hearing things that you don't necessarily want to hear. It's up to you if you want to take action on it or whatever, but like you still need to be open to hear it, not turn around and bitch about it.
Yeah. That's I see that a lot. And it's happened to me personally, for people, that have been around my world, and they'll ask for advice and then I give it and they go, well, that's dumb advice. It's like, well, then why'd you ask me? Because if you weren't ready to receive what I was going to say, then what's the point? But the other thing too is, as mentors and leaders, is that we have to understand that there's people that they're what we like to call an ask hole, where they ask everything all the time and they never take action, because it's just them validating whether or not what they think is right. And if they hear that they're right, then they're happy. And if they hear that they're wrong, then they take it out on you.
And they do what they're going to do anyway.
Right. Like they go, oh, well, you weren't correct in that, or I don't agree with what you said. And it's like, no, it's because it didn't line up with what you wanted. And clarity in your business and your life in general does not come with living in the comfort zone and hearing what we want to hear. It comes with somebody saying, hey, you're not doing this right, or you're not okay, or you are not being yourself, and hearing those things and actually perking up and going, okay, yeah, like that makes sense. Let's figure this out. That's going to have a better outcome than just going, no, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. That's the kind of attitude of people who are going to continuously be clawing at the edge of their hole they're trying to dig themselves out of. And or like the crab bucket, right? They're going to be the crab that always gets pulled down and doesn't get out of the bucket.
A great example. I mean, most people don't want to get uncomfortable, but you have to be uncomfortable, put yourself in uncomfortable positions to grow. Like, that's where growth happens, right? Like you see like Tony Robbins teaches about it. Like everybody like teaching growth knows you got to get uncomfortable to move forward. If you're status quo, you're doing the same old stuff and expecting a different result. What's the old adage people say? It's the definition of insanity. Like doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Like, come on, like, and that's kind of a defining characteristic of who you're talking about.
And just so everybody knows, that quote was actually initially said by Albert Einstein.
The crabs?
No, the definition of the crabs. No, the definition of insanity, right? So that was Albert Einstein talking about, trying to get a different result from doing the same thing. It's like, if you continue to do the same thing and expect something different, that's the definition of insanity. And that's just really, it's so true that if you continue to like put my situation in an example, if you continue to put stuff on your plate and you expect that it's going to be different this time around, you cut some things out and then you just pile more things on. You're like, well, this is different because these things are different. No, it's the same thing.
Radical change can be scary.
Right.
So people are, I don't really want to change.
Right.
There's all these unknown. And what if I get it wrong? What? Like, you're already getting it wrong. Go try something new. Like, right. I read something last night. It's like, just because how did it go? Let me think about it for a second. It was like, I failed 10,000 times, and then, so I'm going to be down on myself about it. And then, you have the other person that looks at it, and it's like, I just have 10,000 ways that I know it's not going to work. So now I'm going to move on to the next one, and that could be the one, So it's just essentially it's about perspective, right? Having a great perspective on being able to get that positive result. If you're just focusing on the negative, you're scared, and you don't want to grow. Well, you're not going to grow.
That's right. Well, and it's tough too, because when you look at the just the mindset behind that, it's all about having a growth mindset, but also a willingness to tap into that growth mindset. We can have a growth mindset, but then be blocked to tap into that because of a bad experience or a bad conversation, or something didn't go the way you wanted, and you just walk up. And so it's a choice, right? It's a decision, and you make the decision to actually want to be clear on the things that you're doing. And sometimes that decision is scary, and it can be worrisome. I remember talking with Kyle and John and saying, you know what, like I was worried of the reaction that I was going to get, because these things were things that I was working on with Kyle and John. And it was like, and my worry initially was, how are they going to react? Like, I'm going to be, pulling myself out of projects that we were working on together. And here's the when you've got good people in your corner, is when they turn around, they're like, dude, knock it off. They're like, you don't have to be worried about our response. They're like, if you have to take things off your plate, like, you got to leave the things on that are important to you. You can't just always be thinking like what's important to somebody else. And I can't say no because they might be angry. Well, you know what? Guarantee you've made a hell of a lot more people angry by saying yes, to something that you shouldn't have than saying no to something that you should have said no to.
100%. Like, that's beautiful perspective, because that's true. Like, saying yes to things that you can't follow through on, or that in the moment, like, or as you're doing, like, you're like, oh shit, this is too much. Like, and that's okay. Like, recognizing where you're at the moment, but if you continue to just have that facade, like, yeah, I'm gonna get it done, yeah, I'm gonna get it done, that's more disappointing to anybody than than having the tough conversation where you can say, look, I've taken off too much and I need to cut back. And this is one of those things. Like, way more respect for somebody that can do that.
Mhm.
And on top of all of that too, like speaking about your specific situation, like, as your friends and as your partners, and like, we're here to make sure you're good, and everybody's partnership should be like that. If you have a partner that throws you shade or gaslights you, or just gets pissed because you're not doing exactly what they want, you've got the wrong partner. Like, you need a partnership is about helping each other, right, and supporting each other. And so take the time that you need to get clear on what you need to do. And if we've bitten off too much that we can chew, then we're going to pivot. Or maybe somebody else can take on more of the workloads, that you can free up what you need to, as far as
Absolutely.
partnerships go. And like that, like, all goes back to clarity. Like, when you have clarity together as well, with the direction that you want to go, and like where things need to be, and where each other are at in their own personal lives, like, that's when you can grow together.
Yeah, man. No, that's beautifully said. And I don't really have much more to add, other than it's just the importance behind it is not just for your own psyche and things like that, but the importance behind it is also really specifically to help you be more on point with what you're working on, help you be more tuned in to the things that you're doing. And clarity in not just your business, but your life is important, because then you're not missing out on those moments that you really need to be part of. When you look at like your business, those moments when your business starts to grow, if you're focused on too many things, you're not going to catch it. It's going to pass you by. You're going to have opportunities that you'll wonder yourself, like, why did that happen for me? Like, you start at the same time as somebody else in an opportunity, and they surpass you and they're way ahead of you, and you're sitting back going, well, what the heck? Why is it not working for me? Well, guess what?
I think the older I get, man, the more it's just about clarity and belief.
100%. And as we even, like, we learn from our kids, and we learn from being, around them, and understanding, like, if you ever look at, like, and like, Kyle, you're going to get this, and anybody else who's had young kids, look at like a 3, 4, 5-year-old kid, and when they make a decision of something they want, look at the effort that they put to try to get what they want.
Real clear.
Like, they are very clear on what it is they want, and they are very clear on every every opportunity they're going to have. The whining, the crying, the begging, all that stuff.
What do you mean? The persistence?
The persistence, right? And here's the thing, like, as parents, we go, man, just like, like, if you ask me again, I'm just going to say no forever. And when you think about that in your business, if you're not that persistent with your business, and you're just kind of letting it ride, and you're kind of just like, well, I'm going to see what happens kind of thing, it ain't going to go anywhere. Honestly, the world's going to push back and be like, well, if you're, it's you get the opposite effect, right? Like, in life, your kids want something, they're going to beg you for it. Well, if you beg people to sign up for your business or to buy the thing that you're selling, yeah, you're going to turn them off too. But you have to have that tenacity in your business to even get there. So you got to treat your business like I'll say it, like a toddler wanting a piece of candy or something, that they can't have. And you continue to believe that you're going to have that piece of candy no matter what. So you push yourself to continue, begging and pleading and all this stuff, which begging and pleading is kind of a bad
to make that a little more refined.
Yeah.
It's transferring your certainty and belief into somebody else.
Yes.
And the better that you can get at that, So first, you got to work on yourself, right? Clarity, belief. And when your clarity and belief is at a high level, you can transfer that. And the better that you can get at transferring that, the more successful your business is going to be.
And that's exactly right. That's the thanks for rounding that out, because apparently I wasn't getting there. That sometimes that happens, right? I'm like, I know where I'm trying to go, like trying to get to this point.
What a vision.
How do I get there? And Kyle's like, I got you. But yeah, I mean, it's taking that kind of that tenacity of wanting the thing so bad that, and you're so clear on your vision and your purpose and your mission to get there, is that you have to act like a toddler towards your business and just never give up. And like you said, trying to transfer that belief, that confidence, that clarity to the outside world, and be like, I am clear that this is the path I'm designed to be on. This is the direction I'm going, and this is what I'm going to do. And nobody's going to tell me any different. And when you don't have that because you're fogged up with everything else going
massive
on,
action, guys.
Yeah, massive action.
And there's where you win.
So cool. Well, I'm going to say we're going to cut this here where we're at. We probably
this stuff's good, man. This is therapeutic. Like the last couple of weeks for us was, it's been more than a couple of weeks, I think, but it's definitely therapeutic. And more than that, it absolutely helps with the direction that I think you want to go, the direction that I want to go. And so hopefully you guys can focus on getting clear, razor sharp clarity with what you want out of your business, out of your goals, and you can set that into motion for yourself to achieve your goals.
Absolutely. And again, just putting it out there, we are here for anybody who's hoping to get that kind of clarity, anybody who needs to talk things through. If you're working on things that you're not really sure what to do about them, or maybe you think you're doing too much, or maybe you're not doing enough, whatever the case may be, we have been around the marketing world for a while, each of us. We've got a bunch of other experience.
Day job too.
Well, yeah, we've got jobs too. I mean, here's the thing.
It's marketing is my day job too.
Yeah. Well, for you, yes. Yeah. For me, not so much. for me, it's a matter of, taking care of people that aren't clear in what they're doing. But which I guess in a way is kind of cathartic, right? You get to help people gain clarity by fixing the problems that they've put themselves into.
Different kind of satisfaction.
So cool, man. Well, let's anybody out there?
We'll be here in another 2 weeks, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, yes, 2 weeks. And maybe a little teaser is next time we're going to be on, I think what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about I think we might have an interview. I've got a couple people I'm talking to. We might actually have an interview next time.
Oh, look at that.
So we'll definitely keep you guys posted, but appreciate y'all being here. Appreciate everybody sticking around with us, who's sticking around. Ted, Scott, thank you guys for being on with us today. Appreciate it. And until next time, those two dads out.
See you guys.